welcome to Chantex Multimedia live stream for the 18th of December, and it's a beautiful day out there today after the rain that we've had, and today we will have a very special guest in our studio, as we have said, Senator Paul Scar, and very soon we'll all get to meet him and talk about all the things that he does out in the community. But with the news and everything like that, we'll need to look at what's happening with the weather. And with that, let's welcome Dilraj with the weather.
Good morning, everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of today is maximum 30 degree. Brisbane area is partly cloudy with medium chance of showers. Winds northeasterly 15 to 25 km per hour, becoming light in the evening. And fire danger is low to moderate. Sun protection is recommended till 4 p.m. and UV index is predicted to reach 13, that is extreme. Over the weekend, on Saturday, minimum will be 24 and maximum will be 31. And on Sunday, minimum will be 23 and maximum will be 30. Over the weekend, Brisbane area will be partly cloudy with medium chances of showers. Light winds becoming northeasterly 15 to 20 km per hour in the middle of the day and then becoming light in the evening. Sun protection is recommended from 20 past 7 till 4 p.m. and UV index is predicted to reach 13, that is extreme. Till tomorrow, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Raj, with that update. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now moving on, let's have a quick look at the headlines for today before we go into the other main news for today.
Quarter of a million Sydney-siders have been urged to stay at home for 3 days, and Christmas travel plans have been thrown into chaos across the country after the Northern Beaches COVID cluster jumped to 17 cases. Health authorities have asked all residents of the Northern Beaches to stay at home as they work to limit the spread of the virus. The outbreak has shocked the community, with testing sites operating around the clock. Other states and territories have reacted quickly, imposing restrictions on anyone who's been in the Northern Beaches area since last Friday. They're being told to isolate and get tested immediately, and many jurisdictions are imposing 14-day quarantine rules, leaving the Christmas plans of thousands of families in limbo. Queensland police are investigating whether an alleged double murder in Brisbane is linked to a fatal shooting on a Logan motorway. The bodies of an 86-year-old woman and 87-year-old man were found yesterday afternoon in a home in Parkinson by officers conducting a welfare check. It followed an incident on the Logan motorway at Drill yesterday morning, where a 22-year-old man was shot and killed after he allegedly threatened officers with a knife. French President Emmanuel Macron has tested positive for COVID-19, forcing several other European leaders into self-isolation. The Spanish and Portuguese Prime Ministers are among those quarantining, along with the French Prime Minister, Speaker and Mr Macron's wife Brigitte, who is showing no symptoms.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's been the news update for this morning. And as I mentioned before, that today we have a very special studio guest. And of course, he is no stranger when it comes to our community, because, he has always been there with us. He has, helped us a lot in many of the functions and events, and his presence is always felt. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'd like to welcome to the studio Senator Paul Scar.
Hello Umesh, it's wonderful to be with you again.
And it is wonderful to have you in the studio once again. And of course, when we look at all the things that you have been doing out in the community, it is amazing that the number of functions that you go and attend. Right now, just for our listeners, and also from your own words, we know about councillors, we know about our state MPs. So senators. What do senators do? What are the roles? In Canberra.
Well, each state in Australia, including Queensland, elects 12 senators, and each of the Australian Capital Territory and the Northern Territory elect 2 senators. and the senators sit in the upper house in Australia's parliamentary system. It is considered to be what's called a house of review. So the lower house passes legislation, then it comes up to the upper house in the Senate, and our role is to review that legislation. Sometimes it's referred to committees, so that we can get evidence with respect to how that legislation is going to affect people in their day-to-day lives. And then we consider the legislation. We may propose amendments or changes to the legislation. If we do that, it goes back to the lower house. They consider the amendments, and then hopefully we get a piece of legislation that's in the best interests of all Australians.
Now that explains it in a nutshell, because remember that many times people talk about all these roles and what they are all about. Well, right now, one of the news that came out of your office was the Indian diaspora and the economic success and the contribution of the Indian diaspora and that how they would be looked at in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Umesh. I'm actually passionate about the contribution that the Australian Indian diaspora makes to this country and the potential for Australia to take advantage of those connections between the Indian diaspora and India. The Prime Minister has set up a global talent task force where the Prime Minister is looking to attract the best and the brightest and most talented people to this country, to Australia, to help boost economic activity as we work our way out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I've made strong representations to the Prime Minister and to the government that the Australian Indian diaspora has such an important part to play in terms of attracting talent, entrepreneurial experience and capital from India to Australia, so that we can get that extra capital and talent invested into our agricultural sector, our advanced manufacturing sector, the IT sector, a whole different ranges and types of activities in the economy. And I think there's a real opportunity for that in Australia, and for us to work with the Australian Indian diaspora to attract that talent to Australia.
And I think that is very, very important. And once we were on a virtual conference with Minister Taj, and I think it was highlighted there as well. So it is good to see that that's happening. And of course, under the current circumstances, we've seen there's a decline in the number of even Indian students who are coming. The Indian diaspora being quite entrepreneurial, of course, they will make a good contribution to the economy. Now, also you touched on COVID-19. So my next point would be, the current year that was 2020. Many people would say it's a write-off. What have been the lessons learned, and how has the government's handling of that, and what's our plan of recovery?
Well, Umesh, I must say, as a senator for this state of Queensland, looking back over the last 12 months through the pandemic, I'm really proud of how our community has rallied to the cause in terms of all the community organisations who have reached out and helped people in need, vulnerable people, and that includes all of the wonderful Australian Indian community organisations who have helped international students and other people who have been vulnerable in this situation. From the Australian government's point of view, the focus has been to protect people's lives through our health system and livelihoods, and that's through initiatives such as JobKeeper, the Job Seeker Supplement, and also things like Home Builder, where we're giving incentive for people to buy land, build their first home. And that's had a very positive impact in terms of generating economic activity across the country. Just yesterday, a mid-year economic financial summary was released in terms of the status of the budget position, and that had some really pleasing news. Firstly, about 85% of people who lost their jobs in April, when the COVID pandemic really started to hit businesses, have managed to get their jobs back, are back working again, and that's really, really positive. And secondly, the budget position is going to be approximately 15 billion, that's billion with a B, better off than it was expected just when the budget was brought down just a few months ago. So I think when we look back at this year, I think we can be proud how we as an Australian community have maintained our social cohesion. And you look at some of the examples overseas, other countries have not done as well. Secondly, our economy is doing better than what we thought. There are still challenges we need to meet, but I think government policy has worked under the leadership of Prime Minister Scott Morrison and the Treasurer Josh Frydenberg. And third, the health outcomes in Australia have been very, very good. And I really pay tribute to Australia's Health Minister, Greg Hunt. I think he's just done an outstanding job. And we haven't seen those scenes in Australia of intensive care units being overwhelmed with cases. We haven't seen those scenes in Australia, and I think that's a credit to everyone in our community and to the government response.
And I think you have rightly, and you touched there on the media budget. So let's now just hear from our treasurer on what some of the points that you've just been talking about.
Unemployment is now forecast to peak at 7.5% in the March quarter 2021, down from a peak of 8% that was forecast at budget. The unemployment rate steadily declines to 6.25% by mid-2022, 5.75% by mid-2023, 5.25% by mid-24, when it approaches the level it was at the start of this year. We have come a long way from Treasury's initial estimate that the unemployment rate could reach 10% or 15% without JobKeeper. This improved outlook is off the back of unprecedented levels of economic support. There do, however, remain downside risks to Australia's economic recovery. These include the timing, the distribution and the effectiveness of the vaccine in stopping the spread of the virus globally. Trade tensions that limit Australia's access to international export markets, and domestic economic uncertainty that could lead to higher household savings and lower consumption levels. So there is a very tough road ahead. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but there is still a very long way to go in Australia's economic recovery. That all being said, today's budget update provides further cause for optimism that Australia's economic comeback is underway. Tax cuts, business investment incentives, the JobMaker hiring credit, home builder, and a record spend on infrastructure and skills are all part of the Morrison government's JobMaker plan. Household and business balance sheets have been substantially supported throughout this crisis, providing the foundation for a recovery in consumption and investment. With confidence returning and Australians getting back to their normal lives, we are placed better than virtually any other nation in the world to emerge stronger on the other side of COVID-19.
So that's the report there, and it quite complements what you have been saying, Senator.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd just like to pay tribute to Josh Frydenberg, the Federal Treasurer. He has undertaken a huge load during the course of the year. He's a very, very decent person. He's a good friend of mine, and I just know how hard he's been working during the course of the year for the Australian community. So I really do pay tribute to him.
Okay, Senator, moving on, you've mentioned that about the farms and the farming, the farming community from the Indian community. But as we know, right at this point in time, as we speak, there's a protest going on in India by the farmers who have made all the way to Delhi, with some of the rules in there. So, now I'd like to get your comments on that situation.
Umesh, I think the first thing I'd like to say is I really do understand why this is generating such interest in Australia. Many of the people in the Australian Indian community I've spoken to over many years come from farming backgrounds. So they have family and friends involved in farming in India. They come from farming communities. and they feel very strongly about these issues, and I really understand that. And I congratulate all members of the Australian Indian community who, when they have been raising these issues, have been doing it in an Australian context in a very peaceful way, and that is the Australian way. The second point I'd make is that I don't think it's really appropriate for me as an Australian politician to be commenting on domestic policies of another country. I feel uncomfortable doing that, but I'd say this, that I think in an Australian context, we understand through our history how difficult some reform processes can be and how challenging these can be for a society at large. And I just hope that these issues are resolved in India in a peaceful way and in the best interests of all the Indian community. And I say that as a person representing the Australian government and as someone who really does value the relationship between Australia and India. India is a dear, dear friend to Australia. So from an Australian perspective, we just want to see these issues resolved in a peaceful way in accordance with India's own democratic processes. And we should always remember, and I always stress this to my colleagues, that there are some real common features between India and Australia, and that includes democracy and the rule of law. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a strong relationship.
And exactly right, Senator, as you have mentioned that, we have so many similarities between the two countries. And of course, when we talk about the farmers, my heart really goes out to the farmers who are right now on the streets of Delhi in the freezing cold. So as you mentioned, I too would like to see that, the matter is resolved and sooner than later, because in the best interest of everyone. And I hope that, they have, the Farmers Union and the Farmers Rep and the government authorities can meet together and have a meaningful dialogue and probably come up to some agreement, because by the looking at the farmers, they're suffering on those streets there is really bad. But and it's been dragging on now. It's into about 22nd days. Okay, next up we'll talk about another country which is very close to us, and there's a lot of Indian community from there as well in Australia, is Fiji. And last night it got battered with Tropical Cyclone Yasa, which had winds of 240 kilometers per hour and momentarily gusts of about 345, and it's done a lot of damage there to the country. And so I'm pretty sure there would be some relief work as usually from the community here in Brisbane for Fiji.
Yeah, Umesh, I think 2 points to make in that regard. The first is Fiji is part of our Australian Pacific family, and they are like a family member, and the Australian government will be doing everything it needs to do in order to support Fiji respond to this catastrophe. And the second point is, and this has happened many times, I can remember the Fijian community, the broader Australian community in Brisbane rallying and making sure that we contribute to get aid and relief to Fiji. And I know there are Fijian community groups who are already organising things like containers of relief material to be sent to Fiji to help the Fijian people. And I'll certainly be supporting all of those endeavours. And if anyone watching this show wants to know how to be put into contact with people who are organising those relief efforts, please contact me. And I'd be happy to put you in touch with people to make sure that we can help our Fijian family members. And we are like a family in the Asia Pacific, and I think those relationships between Australia and our Asian Pacific neighbours are like family relationships, and we're closer to those countries maybe than anyone else. And it's not just geography, it's also we have large communities in Australia who come from those places. So we will help, absolutely help, and make sure we get aid and assistance to Fiji as quickly as we possibly can.
And thank you very much for your pledge of support to Fiji. And as you know that it's one of our Pacific Island nations which is very close to us here. I think it's roughly 3 hours flight from here, and you could get to Fiji quicker than you can get to some parts of Australia. And they have always been very well connected with Australia.
That's right.
And of course New Zealand as well, the large community there as well.
Yeah.
So I think the curfew which was put on last night has been lifted this morning. Under the curfew, the army and the police had special powers, so that's why what the government declares has a very strong bearing on what can be done in the community. So they are coming to terms and grips with that. Now, on a lighter note, there's something which we have been supporting for a long time. Is the BSK award. So something let's talk about something on a lighter note there, on a happy note. So it was very good to see you at the BSK awards as expected, because I was something came in my phone memory, and there was previous years and you were there as well.
I have so much admiration for Brisbane Super Kings, the great cricket club, which I think has been going now 8 or 9 years, and this year, Umesh, it was wonderful to see that they've introduced some girls teams, and that was a highlight of the evening, I think, to see all of the young girls there and to be part of the presentation of trophies to each of them, discovering the world of cricket. And I reflected on the night how much I would have hoped when I was a young boy that my sister could have engaged in a cricket team, so should be more inclined to come out to the backyard and play cricket with me. But so be it. But it was wonderful to see that, and I just congratulate everyone involved in that club. There is such a positive spirit there. It is a highlight of my year to attend that award ceremony and to share in that spirit. And I spoke to Mandeep, who was there, about the impact he sees on the children in particular who play cricket, and how it boosts their self-esteem, gives them confidence, it helps them discover new friends, and just makes them better people. So I really just give my 100% gratitude to everyone involved in Super Kings, and I look forward to supporting it for many years to come.
And I think what you have said there about cricket bringing people together, when you talked about Mandeep, when we look at Satish Rajendran and everyone from South India, Mandeep from North India, and India in its own right being quite diverse. Now this is one thing that brings everyone together. It brings everyone together. So you're from South or North or whatever, you're from Kerala, or you're from you are a Malayali, or you are from Punjab. Everyone comes together, and everyone's together for cricket. So right now Australia and India cricket's happening as well. But I mean, it was wonderful to see that. So, and the point you made there about bringing it brings the community together, which is wonderful to see. And thank you for your support. Now, there's also a tradition which you have started every year. There's some special award you give out.
Yeah, so I asked Satish a few years ago, I wanted to make a contribution and to someone on a yearly basis who's done something special for the club. And all organisations have those people who have been members and have played a key role in the formation of the club or the organisation, who have gone beyond what you'd usually expect someone to do. So we started a tradition, I think it was 3 or so years ago now, where I present a special award to someone to recognise the contribution that they've made to the Super Kings Club.
And it was wonderful to see that the Satish got that very special signed.
Well, no, absolutely. And Satish has just been a powerhouse behind the club. So this year I brought a special award. And I wasn't sure who it was going to be given to, actually, on the night, but I was determined that Satish should walk away with something as well, given the contribution he's given to the club over many years. So I brought 2 items, actually, and the first was the special award, which was a signed cricket jumper by Tendulkar, Sachin Tendulkar. And lo and behold, on the evening, Satish got the special award. So not only did he get the Sachin Tendulkar cricket top, framed, beautifully framed, he also got my second award, which I brought along specifically for him, which was a signed cricket bat by Sir Donald Bradman. So it just seemed to me that was beautiful symmetry there, and something which really reflected the bond between Australia and India in terms of the cricket top signed by Sachin Tendulkar and the cricket bat signed by Sir Donald Bradman. So it was a highlight of my year to present that to someone who was so deserving of the award, Umesh.
And thank you so much for that. And as we know that Satish has been there from the word go, even though this year he's not on the committee itself, but as we know, he's the driving force behind it. It's been his brainchild, so he will always make sure that it goes ahead as planned, and support the new people who come in onto the committee. And that's what I've been saying about many community organizations, is regardless of which team comes in to run the organization that year, everyone should just support those teams. So as you have seen in Queensland, we all, even within the multicultural, the broader multicultural community, support each other by, going to each other's functions and promoting those ones.
And that's Umesh. That's something I say to my colleagues from New South Wales and Victoria and other places in Australia. I say Queensland has such a special multicultural community because everyone supports the efforts of each other, and we're like one big family. And it's I think Brisbane is one of the most successful multicultural countries in the world. I really do believe that, and it makes me very proud and honoured to represent this state in Canberra.
And that's quite well said there as well. And just within the Indian community, our High Commissioner from Canberra, he mentioned that, whenever he comes to Queensland and he watches how everyone's working together, that it is great. And of course, we always have some little politics happening in every group. That is quite natural. Now, this year has been one of those years where not many functions could take place. Now, some of the functions could happen likely. One is India Day Fair, and you have attended quite a few of those. So India Day Fair, 15th of August, which is India's Independence Day, and 26th is the Republic Day. So there's plans for that function, and I'm pretty sure that you'll be coming to that as well. But when we talk about India Day Fair at Thomas Street Parklands, so this year was going to be our 10th anniversary one for the function itself, and it could not go ahead. So we are planning. Plans are already underway for 2021. The venue is booked. So once again, looking forward to your support and that.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And it is, and we could, as you said, we couldn't have it this year. But again, it's one of the highlights of my year to attend the Australia India Day Fair in Roma Street Parklands and see all the different community groups. That procession which occurs right at the start when the different community groups come in, playing their instruments, dressed up in their cultural costumes. It's just a wonderful, wonderful moment, and I congratulate you, Umesh, for all the work you've done over many, many years in terms of that festival. And more Australians, not just of Indian background, are attending and watching and learning about more and more about our wonderful Australian Indian community. So I'm really looking forward to attending that event next year.
And thank you so much for that. And I know that your contribution has been there. You have always attended, and as you have mentioned, it's become an iconic festival where it is not only for the Indian community. It is showcasing the Indian culture, tradition, cuisine, and everything to the wider community as well. And it's become quite an iconic event. The venue itself is quite prestigious. It is a bit challenging, but that parade, which you said, is amazing. When we have all the different states of India parade with the traditional drummings, each trying to outdo each other with how loud and how long one can play those drums. But it is wonderful to see that community once again coming together on that place. So just in conclusion, in coming to the end of our talk today, is there anything specific that you'd like to mention to all our viewers and listeners?
Well, look, I would just like to thank all members of the Australian Indian community for the contribution they've made during the course of the year. And I reflected at a celebration of the Diwali festival at Brisbane City Hall a few weeks ago. Diwali, of course, represents light versus darkness, the supremacy of goodness over evil, knowledge over ignorance. And I think no light has shone brighter this year than the light that has shone from the heart of the Australian Indian community in terms of helping fellow Australians and also visitors to our country who during the pandemic have needed assistance. And I would just like to thank everyone watching this or listening to this for the contribution that they've made to help their fellow Australians and also visitors to our country. It really gives me great honour to represent the people of Australia in the Senate, and the work that's done by our community organisations, including our Australian Indian community organisations, is one of the reasons why I'm honoured to represent this state in Canberra.
And Senator, once again, thank you very much for your time today, being here in the studios with us and sharing your views with our community. And of course, wishing you, your family, and everyone all the best for the festive season. And everyone, remain safe during this period as well.
Thank you, Umesh, and the same to you, Umesh, and your family, Usha, and your beautiful family, and all of our listeners. Wishing you all of the best sentiments of this festive season.
So thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, that has been a very special conversation, a special dialogue with Senator Paul Scar. And of course, from time to time, he's promised that he will come and keep us updated with what's happening, what's happening in the community, and if there are any rules and laws impacting us or the multicultural community, he's happy to discuss that with us right here. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to send those ones forward to us. We'll pass that on to him as well. Once again, congratulations and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today's live stream has been proudly sponsored by Gaura Travels, www.gauratravel.com.au, your travel agency. And if you can, always look up their website. They've got many flights going to India. The first one is on the 21st, which is a flight directly from Brisbane, which is going. So, if you would like to get on that flight, you really need to contact them ASAP. So, Gaura Travels, your best way home. Well, right now, we need to move on with the show and talking about many things that are happening. But first of all, a message from Gaura Travels. So, ladies and gentlemen, right now, moving on, we've heard about the cases happening in, the COVID cases happening in New South Wales. So, let's hear from the Premier of New South Wales and get an update on what the situation is.
What is the latest and how bad could this get?
Oh, look, yes, we're bracing ourselves for more cases today, no doubt about that. I'll be providing an update with the Chief Medical Officer and the Minister for Health at 11 a.m. this morning. But we are concerned, extremely concerned, and that's why we're saying to everybody on the Northern Beaches in the Northern Beaches community, stay home unless you absolutely have to be out and about. We want to reduce mobility, reduce people going to venues which are regarded as high risk when we know there's the virus spreading in the community. And of course, if you're catching public transport, if you're going grocery shopping, please make sure you're wearing a mask. And We are also asking everybody in Greater Sydney to be on high alert. People from the northern beaches who may have had the disease and not known about it, may have gone to other venues throughout Sydney or mingled with people throughout Sydney. So everybody should be on high alert. We're taking this extremely seriously. We want to get on top of it as soon as we can to try and give people as normal a Christmas as possible. The next 24 to 48 hours will be absolutely critical. And obviously we're asking the whole community to really work with us. And to date, the community's been fantastic. We had 6 extra pop-up clinics on the northern beaches yesterday. People responded in the thousands.
Do we know about the origins of this outbreak?
Well, we know the original source is an international source. So the genomic testing has confirmed that it is an international strain, but obviously we're yet to work out how it got from the international source to the community, whether it was through quarantine or through other sources. So that is really the challenge for our genomic experts at the moment. So they've been able to identify that the original source, the original strain, is an international one, but obviously how it got into the community is the next challenge.
So that's what's happening in New South Wales, and let's hear from the Northern Beaches Mayor and get his point and his perspective on the situation.
Michael Regan, we only spoke to you a couple of hours ago and so much has changed since then. What's the latest that you're hearing?
Yeah, we're just hearing the same as what you're all hearing, which is they're asking us to take precautionary measures tomorrow and to stay at home and don't go to work unless you need to. Stay away from unnecessary gatherings like restaurants, cafes and shops, I guess. So essentially have a long weekend until they give us more information, which will be, I dare say, late tomorrow morning from what I'm hearing.
Right, so you're in close contact with New South Wales health authorities and the state government. Have they told you anything more about how big they expect this cluster to be?
No, they haven't told me how big they expect it to be, but they are confident they'll be on top of it and be able to give us a lot of clear information tomorrow. They just want to take precautions. They know that our community is largely compliant. So if we say, you know, do these things ahead of, then we'll try and get on top of it very quickly. So they seem very confident and they want to be upfront with people and just say, you know, take a break. If you don't have to go out, don't go out. Avoid all unessential travel, all that sort of thing that we've been hearing. But they're really saying, let's lock it down right now and let's get on top of this.
This is effectively a stay-home order for 3 days for the Northern Beaches region, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is, but it's not an order yet. So I just want to be really clear. It's not an order yet. It's just advice. The Minister's very keen to make sure he's saying it's just advice and to remind people that they have been in the past very compliant and to be very compliant again and just take it as advice until such times as we can get on top of it, or until the health department can get on top of it. And they are keen. They're very confident, and we're taking precautions as a council. We're telling our staff tonight to stay at home. We've got something like nearly 2,000 staff that we need to get that message to, so we're doing the right thing and telling them that, and we'll monitor the beaches tomorrow morning and other areas just to make sure that the message is getting out there loud and clear, and we'll start doing our bit on social media as well.
Do you anticipate that businesses in the region will shut for these 3 days?
I've had a number of them contact me tonight actually and say what's the best advice, and the best advice I've said to them is you don't want to be one of those venues that has to be shut down, deep cleaned and be responsible for close contact and then miss Christmas. So until it's not a health order, but they should take the advice and be sensible and don't be a venue, if you like, and don't be one of those. So I think, again, people were largely compliant the first time around. I think they'll be compliant again this time around.
And you were telling us before that...
So what we know so far is that even Western Australia has issued a watch warning and that they will, if the need be, put a quarantine and on the borders if necessary. Well, right now, the final news for today is what we began with, is the Tropical Cyclone Yasa, which is in Fiji. And let's take a quick look at what's happening there. So there's mass devastation. Tropical Cyclone Yasa leaves a trail of destruction in Nassau village in Coro. Severe Tropical Cyclone Yasa has left a devastating trail of destruction in Nassau village and nearby communities in Coro this morning. Panapasa Nayabokoro also resides in Nassau village and says most of the houses have been destroyed, which includes the government quarters as well. He says that the government officials and villagers are currently doing a cleanup on what they saw this morning, reminds them of the devastation that was caused by Tropical Cyclone Winston in 2016. He adds that 32 people are currently sheltering at Nassau Health Center. So as you can see from these photos, that there is mass devastation, and some of these houses had got extensive damage done to them. And of course, relief work has begun. The curfew has been lifted, and of course there's some groups getting together here in Brisbane to arrange some support. This is Reki town, as you can see there from the photo, and of course there's quite a lot of people who are in the evacuation centers. There's 23,479 people who are in the evacuation centers. So 23,479 people are currently in the evacuation centers around the country. This equates to about 3,316 households in 457 evacuation centers. The National Disaster Management Office says 3,534 people are currently in 75 evacuation centers in the Northern Division, and of course the numbers carry forward towards the Central, Eastern and Western Division. So as you can see from these photos, that the devastation and the level of damage that's been done by the cyclone, and of course the most affected areas are Vanua Levu and some of those smaller islands on that side. So, ladies and gentlemen, right now let's hear from the Fiji and see what the situation is there like.
Bula, this is Wilfred coming in from Samambula, Suva in Fiji. Right now we're just waiting. We've been following the guidelines and the precautions that government and emergency services have provided. At the moment it's raining and the winds have started to pick up, but we're anticipating this will intensify later on or throughout the day. Right now we've just been checking on our family and our neighbors and started putting up our shutters at home, and we do have our emergency supplies stocked ready for the cyclone Yasa. This being a category 5 cyclone, we're not taking things lightly at all. We're making sure that we have everything secured, and we know that in the Pacific we are resilient, and we'll do everything we can to prepare until the worst is over. Naka.
So that report there from Fiji. Well, right now it's time to say goodbye. It's been wonderful having your company as usual, and don't forget that keep an eye out on the situation in New South Wales. If you're making travel plans, or if you're planning to have family over, be very careful of the notices, because otherwise you don't want people coming over then having to go into the quarantine. And of course the situation in Fiji, we will keep you updated in tomorrow's show as well. The weekend is coming up, and if you're out and about, please do take care, and of course those health and safety warnings are still to be maintained. Please make sure that you are still vigilant and keep your distance, keep the hygiene levels up as well. And tomorrow we'll bring to you an analysis of the cricket match that's happening between India and Australia here. We'll get someone who knows very well about all that's happening to discuss that tomorrow. We'll bring an update on the Fiji situation. We'll bring an update on the situation in India tomorrow. So right now is goodbye from me. It's wonderful to have your company. And once again, please do take care. And until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me.